The Galactic Council watched silently as the hologram of Earth rotated before them. A small blue planet, fragile, divided, primitive. The Supreme Commander of Zorath spoke with cold confidence. These humans fight among themselves. The technology is crude. Their fleets are laughable. This will not be a war. This will be a demonstration. The invasion began at dawn. Alien ships darkened the skies over Earth's greatest cities. Panic spread. Nations froze. The world held its breath. Then something unexpected happened. Humanity didn't fall. Instead, a global transmission went live. A human general stood before the world, fought each other for centuries, he said. But today we fight for our home, for our children, for our future. And for the first time in history, every nation stood as one. Hidden defense systems activated, satellites transformed into weapons, civilian ships became battle fleets. The aliens watched in horror as their front lines collapsed. Impossible, the Council whispered. They were supposed to be weak, but humanity didn't just fight, they adapted. They learned. They evolved. In the middle of war, human pilots flew into impossible battles. Scientists hacked alien tech in hours. Soldiers stood their ground against creatures twice their size. And the final message sent across the galaxy was simple. Earth is not yours to conquer. It is ours to defend. And from that day forward, every species in the galaxy learned one rule. Never underestimate humanity. The vast chamber of the Galactic Council hovered in the silent void between stars, a colossal structure of shimmering energy and ancient metal that had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations. Its walls glowed with living constellations, each light representing a world under the Council's watchful gaze. At the center of the chamber, a massive holographic projection slowly rotated, a small blue and green planet suspended in space like a fragile jewel, Earth. The Council members gathered around it, towering beings of different shapes, sizes, and forms. Each species representing a powerful empire that had once conquered entire systems. Some had wings of pure light, others had skin like molten stone, existed as shifting clouds of glowing mist. Despite their differences, they shared one common expression: amusement. A low, echoing laugh rolled through the chamber as the Supreme Commander of Zorath stepped forward. His crimson eyes narrowed as he studied the planet. So this is the world that has begun to send signals beyond its star, he said, his voice reverberating like thunder through deep space. A species that believes itself ready to join the galaxy. The hologram zoomed in, revealing cities lit like tiny sparks across Earth's surface. Human ships drifted in orbit, small and clumsy compared to the towering war vessels of the Council. The alien leaders exchanged glances, their expressions filled with disbelief. Thea, divided, whispered the Oracle of Varex, her voice like a cold wind across stone. Their nations compete, their leaders argue, and their people struggle among themselves. This is not a united species. This is a fractured one. The Council screens flashed with data, human conflicts, political disputes, resource shortages enough, and endless records of wars fought among their own kind. To the ancient beings of the Council, these flaws were signs of weakness. Proof that humanity was still trapped in its primitive stage of evolution. A towering figure with metallic skin and glowing blue veins leaned closer to the hologram. Their weapons are crude. Their defenses are laughable. They barely understand the forces that shape the stars, he said with a tone of calm superiority. And we have faced civilizations far greater than this and erased them from existence. The planet continued to spin slowly, unaware of the judgment being passed upon it. At the far end of the chamber, an elder being, ancient beyond counting, observed in silence. Its form flickered between solid and spectral, as if time itself could not decide what it should be. While the others mocked and dismissed humanity, this elder studied Earth with careful attention, noticing something the others overlooked: the faint but relentless glow of activity, the endless movement, the constant adaptation. But the Council had already made up its mind. The Supreme Commander raised his hand, and the chamber fell silent. For centuries, we have maintained order in this galaxy. We have crushed rebellions, ended rising empires, and silenced those who dared challenge the balance of power, he declared. No, this species has taken its first step into our domain. We will teach them their place. A ripple of approval moved through the council. Let this be a demonstration, another leader said. Not a war. A lesson. The galaxy must remember who truly rules the stars. The hologram shifted, now displaying potential invasion routes, human defense satellites, and major population centers. The council analyzed it like hunters studying prey, calculating the fastest way to break humanity's spirit. They spoke of shock and awe, of overwhelming force, of ending resistance before it could even begin. Laughter echoed again as they imagined the humans' reaction. Fear, chaos, surrender. Thee will fall in days, one of them said confidently. Their world will beg for mercy before the first cycle is complete. Yet, as the council finalized their plans, the ancient elder finally spoke. Its voice was soft, almost a whisper, but it carried a weight that silenced the room. Be careful, it warned. This species has one trait you underestimate. The others turned annoyed. And what trait is that? The Supreme Commander asked. The Elder's glowing eyes remained fixed on the image of Earth. They endured for a brief moment. Uncertainty flickered through the chamber, but it was quickly drowned out by arrogance and pride. The Supreme Commander dismissed the warning with a wave of his hand. Endurance means nothing without power, he said. Now, hand power is something they do not possess. With a final command, the Council acted in their fleets. Across distant star systems, massive warships awakened from centuries of slumber, engines ignited, bending space itself as armadas aligned for the journey toward a small, new blue planet that had no idea galaxy was about to test its right to exist. The hologram of Earth faded, replaced by a blazing symbol of the Galactic Council. The decision was made. Humanity had been judged, and the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. The symbol of the Galactic Council burned brightly in the center of the chamber, its light pulsing like the heartbeat of an ancient and unstoppable empire. Around it, the council members stood in a wide circle, their towering forms casting long, shifting shadows across the glowing floor. The air itself seemed to hum with power, charged by the presence of beings who had shaped the fate of entire galaxies with a single command. The Supreme Commander of Zorath moved forward, his armored form reflecting the council's symbol in sharp, crimson light. His gaze swept across the assembly, measuring each leader, each general, each ruler of distant star systems. This was not a moment for debate. This was a moment for dominance. Earth has been observed, he declared, his voice echoing through the vast chamber like the toll of a cosmic bell. Its people have reached beyond their star. They have begun to look outward, to listen, to search. That alone makes them a variable in our order. A murmur of agreement rippled through the council. They broadcast their presence without understanding what listens in the dark, said the Empress of Kar, her many eyes glowing with cold amusement. Such innocence is dangerous. Such curiosity invites consequences. A massive holographic display flared to life, showing human telescope scanning the skies, radio signals leaving Earth in slow, expanding waves, and experimental spacecraft pushing past the boundaries of their solar system. To the Council, these were not signs of progress. They were signs of defiance. They believe the galaxy is empty. Another leader said, his voice deep and metallic, they believe they are alone. Let us correct that belief. But the Supreme Commander raised a single clawed hand, and the hologram shifted. Enough. Now it displayed the full might of the Council's fleets, colossal warships the size of cities, carriers that could blot out stars, and weapons capable of shattering planets into drifting dust. The contrast between humanity's fragile vessels and the Council's armada was almost cruel. This will not be a war, the Supreme Commander said. This will be a statement. The Council leaders leaned closer, their inners sharpened by the promise of overwhelming force. They spoke of strategy not in terms of survival, but in terms of spectacle. Which cities would fall first? Which defenses would crumble under the initial strike? How long it would take for humanity's governments to collapse under the weight of fear? We should strike their skis, suggested one. Destroy their satellites, blind their communications, leave them deaf and isolated. No. said another. We strike their symbols, their capitals, their monuments. Let their people see their world break before them. The chamber filled with calculated cruelty, not born from hatred, but from certainty. The certainty of beings who had never been challenged, who had never known what it meant to lose. At the edge of the council, the ancient elder watched in silence. Its form flickered like a dying star, its eyes fixed not on the fleets or the strategies, but on the small, distant image of Earth still glowing faintly in the background. The elder could see what the others could not, the potential hidden beneath chaos, the strength buried within a divided species. But the council's momentum was unstoppable. The Supreme Commander turned to a towering console of living crystal. With a slow, deliberate motion, he placed his hand upon its surface. The crystal pulsed, recognizing his authority, and the room fell into absolute silence. This vote will decide the fate of a world, he announced. Those in favor of intervention, of teaching this species its place in the galaxy, stand with me. One by one, the leaders stepped forward, the imps of Kar, the warlord of the Iron Moons, the high mind of the collective. Each movement was a declaration of power, a silent promise of destruction. The elder remained still. For a moment, the Supreme Commander hesitated, his eyes narrowing. You do not stand with us, he asked. The elder's voice barely more than a whisper, yet it filled the chamber. I have seen civilizations rise from nothing and challenge gods. It said, I have seen weakness become strength when tested by fire. This path you choose may not end as you expect. A ripple of unease passed through the council, but it was quickly smothered by pride. Then watch, the Supreme Commander replied coldly. And learn. He pressed his hand deeper into the crystal. Light exploded outward, racing to the chamber and beyond, not traveling across star systems. In an instant, across the galaxy, ancient shipyards awakened. Massive hangars opened, releasing fleets that had not flown in centuries. Engines roared to life, tearing at the fabric of space itself as armadas aligned toward a single distant point. Earth. The council watched the first wave of ships vanish into shimmering corridors of light, their forms stretching and disappearing as they entered faster than light travel. The moment carried a strange sense of finality, as if a line had been crossed that could never be uncrossed. The Supreme Commander straightened, his posture filled with triumph. Let the galaxy witness our power once more, he said. Let this small world become a reminder of who rules the stars. But behind him, the symbol of the Galactic Council burned brighter than ever, casting its glow over the silent elder, over the confident leaders, and over the vast. Enough unstoppable fleets now racing toward a blue planet that still slept beneath its peaceful skies, unaware that the judgment of the galaxy was already on its way. The first sign that something was wrong came quietly, almost gently, like a whisper before a storm. Astronomers around the world stared at their screens in confusion as unfamiliar shadows appeared at the edge of their sensors. What should have been empty space was suddenly alive with movement. Blips multiplied across radars, not like aircraft or satellites, but like something vast and coordinated, sliding through the darkness between stars. At dawn, the sky itself began to change. Over the oceans, over deserts, over cities that were just waking to another ordinary day. The clouds parted in unnatural patterns. The blue of the heavens dimmed, as if a giant hand were slowly drawing a curtain across the world. People looked up from their morning routines, shielding their eyes, pointing, whispering. Then the first ships appeared. They did not fall from the sky like meteors. They descended with terrible grace, massive silhouettes pushing through the atmosphere without fire, without warning. Colossal shapes, larger than mountains, casting shadows that swallowed entire cities in darkness. The sunlight vanished beneath their holes, and the world felt suddenly small. In New York, the streets fell silent as a black, metallic giant hovered above the skyline, its surface glowing with lines of alien energy. Cars screeched to a halt. People froze mid-step, mid-sentence, mid-breath. Enough. Phones rose into trembling hands, recording what no one could yet understand. In Tokyo, shimmering vessels unfolded in the clouds like mechanical gods, their structures shifting and rotating, defying every known law of engineering. In Cairo, a fleet emerged above the desert, their their reflections gliding across the ancient pyramids, as if history itself were being judged by something far older and far more powerful. Across the world, the same scene repeated. Panic followed awe. Sirens screamed to life in cities that had never imagined a reason to use them like this. Emergency broadcasts cut into television programs, radio stations, and digital screens. Governments scrambled. Leaders shouted orders that no one was sure how to follow. Fighter jets launched from runways across the globe, streaking toward the unknown with human bravery and human fear burning in their engines. The jets looked like insects as they approached the alien armadas. The first warning shot did not come from Earth. A beam of pale, blinding light lanced down from one of the hovering ships and struck the ocean off the coast of a major city. The sea exploded upward in a towering wall of steam and water, the shockwave rattling windows for miles. The message was clear. This was not a greeting. This was a threat. People ran. Families were torn apart in the chaos as crowds surged through streets, through subways, through anywhere that felt like it might offer shelter from the sky itself. Children cried, clutching their parents' hands. Strangers pulled each other up when they fell. Fear became the shared language of the world. From orbit, more ships arrived. The sky above Earth filled with glowing scars as faster than light corridors opened and closed, delivering wave after wave of alien warships into position. Satellites went dark, one by one blinking out like dying stars as invisible pulses tore through humanity's networks. The world's militaries tried to respond. Missiles streaked upward, and trails of fire and smoke cutting through the air. They struck shimmering energy shields and vanished in bursts of harmless light. Cannon fire echoed from the ground, from ships at sea, from hidden bases deep underground, but every attack seemed to dissolve before it could touch the invaders. The alien fleets did not rush. They waited. Hovering in perfect formation, they loomed over the planet like a judgment passed by the heavens themselves. Their presence alone was a weapon crushing morale, bending hope under the weight of something that felt unstoppable. Then the ground began to shake. Massive dropships descended through the atmosphere, their engines roaring like the voices of ancient beasts. They slammed into open fields, into deserts, into the outskirts of major cities, cracking the earth beneath them. Ramps lowered enough, and shapes emerged from the smoke and dust. Towering alien soldiers clad in armor that glowed with shifting patterns of light, weapons humming with contained energy. Human soldiers took their positions, hands shaking but steady on their triggers. The first clash was chaos. Energy blasts tore through buildings, turning steel and concrete into clouds of debris. Streets became battlefields, the air filled with smoke, ash, and the thunder of weapons, both human and alien. Tanks rolled forward, only to be hurled aside by forces they could not see. Helicopters spiraled from the sky, their rotors shredded by beams of light. And yet, humanity did not vanish. In the midst of the overwhelming power of the invasion, there were moments, small, defiant moments. A squad of soldiers holding a bridge long enough for civilians to escape. A pilot steering a damaged jet straight into an alien ship, sacrificing everything to slow the advance. Medics running into fire to pull the wounded back to safety. Across the world, in countless languages, the same words were spoken over emergency channels, over cracked radios, over broken screens. They're here. Above it all, the alien fleets continued to descend, methodical and merciless, believing the outcome already written in the stars. But as the smoke rose and the first battles burned across the face of the planet, something else rose with it, a spark. Not a technology, not a power, of will. Earth was under attack, and for the first time in its long, violent, beautiful history, all of humanity stood on the same side of the battlefield, staring up at the same enemy in the sky, and refusing, even in the face of the impossible, to kneel. The world did not end in a single moment. It unraveled in 1,000 small, trembling ones. Across the planet, fear moved faster than any invasion fleet ever could. It plowed through streets, through homes, through the glowing screens in people's hands and the whispered prayers on their lips. The sky above was no longer just the sky. It had become a ceiling of shadows, a constant reminder that something vast and unknowable hovered just beyond reach. In a quiet suburban neighborhood, a mother stood frozen in her doorway, staring upward as the distant silhouette of an alien ship drifted across the clouds. Her phone buzzed in her hand with emergency alerts she was too afraid to read. Behind her, her children clutches the backpacks, eyes wide, asking questions she had no answers for. All she could do was pull them close, as if her arms alone could shield them from the stars. In crowded cities, the chaos took on a life of its own. Streets that once pulsed with traffic and laughter turned into rivers of people running in every direction. Sirens wailed endlessly, blending into a single haunting cry that echoed between skyscrapers. Storefront windows shattered as desperate hands searched for food, water, anything that felt like control in a world slipping into the unknown. News broadcasts flickered on every screen, their anchors struggling to maintain calm as their own voices trembled. Maps behind them lit up with red zones and blinking warnings. Reports contradicted each other, rumors spread like wildfire, and the line between truth and terror blurred beyond recognition. They're landing in the north. No, they've already taken the coast. The power grid is failing enough. The internet is going down. Every message carried the same undercurrent, uncertainty. In hospitals, nurses moved faster than they ever had before. Wounded civilians poured in, victims of collapsing buildings, panicking stampedes, and the first brutal clashes with the invaders. Hallways filled with the sounds of crying, shouting, and the steady beeping of machines trying to keep people alive while the world outside fell apart. In a small village far from any battlefield, an old man sat on his porch, staring at the darkening sky. He had lived through wars, through hardship, through the slow march of time that took friends and family one by one. But this felt different. This was not another chapter in human history. This felt like the last page. Across the oceans, ships turned back toward shore, their crews watching strange lights dance on the horizon. In the air, flights were grounded, planes circling until fuel ran low, then descending into airports that were no longer sure they could protect anyone. The digital world collapsed under the weight of human desperation. Social networks flooded with final messages, with confessions of love, with apologies never before spoken. People reached out across continents, across borders, across old divisions, trying to find comfort in each other as the future itself became uncertain. In bunkers and government chambers, leaders argued, shouted, and pleaded. Plans were made and discarded in minutes. Old rivalries flared, even as the greatest threat humanity had ever faced loomed overhead. Power struggles didn't vanish. They simply grew sharper, more desperate. Yet, in the middle of all that fear, something else stirred. A young man in a subway station helped an elderly woman down the stairs as the lights flickered overhead. And a group of strangers formed a human chain to pull people from the wreckage of a collapsed building. A teacher gathered her students in a dark classroom, telling stories, singing softly, doing anything she could keep their minds ways away from the thunder in the distance. The chaos was real. The terror was overwhelming, but so was the humanity. In one city, a priest, an imam, and a rabbi stood together in an open square, offering comfort to anyone who passed. Their words different, but their message the same. You are not alone. In another, handed out food and water from the back of a truck, refusing to leave even as the sky above glowed with alien light. The fear did not disappear. People still cried, still ran, still looked up at the stars and wondered if tomorrow would ever come. But beneath the panic, beneath the shaking hands and breaking voices, a quiet realization began to take root. This was not just happening to one nation or one city or one people. This was happening to everyone. For the first time in living memory, the lines that divided humanity, flags, languages, borders, beliefs, felt smaller than the shadow cast by the sky. The enemy did not care who people were, where they were born, or what they believed. To the invaders, Earth was a single world, and slowly, painful through the fear and the chaos, humanity began to see itself the same way. As night fell across the planet, millions of lights went out, either from power failures, from people choosing darkness, over the terror of looking up. Candles flickered in windows, fires burned in the streets. The world glowed softly, not with the cold light of technology, but with the warm, fragile light of human presence. Above it all, the alien ships hovered, silent and watching. Below them, a frightened, wounded, but unbroken species held on to one another in the darkness, waiting for whatever the next dawn would bring, and silently daring the universe to take away what little hope they still had left. Key point 5, INA, TRC, TV, WAD, ass, and make it lengthy and 800. Don't add further key points. Don't add headings. Also mention key point name on top. Key point 5, global human speech. The signal cut through the chaos like a blade of light in a storm. Across broken televisions, cracked phone screens, flickering billboards, and emergency radio channels, the same image appeared. It did not matter where people were, in underground shelters and crowded hospitals, on darkened streets, or huddled in their homes. The transmission found them all. A human figure stood at the center of the screen. The background was simple. No flags. No symbols of power, just a plain wall and a single light above. The person was not dressed in elaborate armor or regal clothing. They wore a worn uniform marked by dust and ash, their face lined with exhaustion. Their eyes, however, burned with something far stronger than fear. For a moment, they said nothing. The world held its breath. Then the voice came, steady, calm, and carrying a weight that reached far beyond the speaker's body. People of Earth, they began. Enough. I don't know what language you're hearing this in. I don't know what city, what country, or what corner of the world you're watching from. But I know one thing for certain. They paused, letting the silence stretch. You are not alone. In shelters, people leaned closer to their screens. In war rooms, generals stopped shouting. In hospitals, nurses turned up the volume. Even soldiers on the front lines froze for a heartbeat, listening through the crackle of damaged radios. For all of our history, the voice continued. We have drawn lines between ourselves, lines on maps, lines in our minds, lines in our hearts. We told ourselves that we were different, that we were separate. Enough. That what happened to one of us did not happen to all of us. The speaker's eyes lifted as if looking beyond the camera, beyond the room, beyond the planet itself. Today, the universe has erased those lines. Images began to appear alongside the broadcast. Cities under shadow, families huddled together, soldiers standing in ruined streets, medics working under flickering lights, scenes from every continent, culture, every walk of life. The sky above every one of us is the same sky. The voice said, the ground beneath our feet is the same ground, and the future that is being threatened belongs to all of us equally. Somewhere in the crowd of listeners, a child squeezed their parent's hand. Somewhere else, a weary soldier straightened their back. Somewhere, a leader who had felt the weight of the world on their shoulders for the first time in their life closed their eyes and listened. We are afraid, the speaker admitted. Anyone who tells you they are not is lying. We are facing something bigger than anything we ever known. Something stronger, older, and more powerful than we ever imagined existed. The speaker took a breath, but fear has never been the end of our story. The images shifted, now showing moments from human history. People helping each other through disasters, hands reaching across rubble, faces lifted toward the sun after long dark nights. We are the species that stood up after every fall. The voice said, we are the ones who rebuild after every war, every storm, every tragedy. We are the ones who learned, who adapted, who refused to disappear. No matter how many times the world tried to break us, the speaker leaned forward slightly, as if speaking to each person directly. They think we are weak because we argue, because we struggle, because we are imperfect, but they do not understand what that really means. A pause. It means we care. It means we feel. It means we fight for what matters. Tears rolled down faces in shelters and streets alike. Some people smiled through the fear for the first time since the sky had gone dark. Watching us right now, the voice continued. They are waiting for us to fall apart, to turn on each other, to beg, to kneel. The speaker shook their heads slowly. That is not who we are. But the broadcast widened, showing people from around the world standing in front of their screens, in front of radios, anything that could carry the signal. Different faces, different clothes, different languages, all listening to the same words. We do not fight today for flags, the voice said. We do not fight for borders or titles or power. We fight for our homes, for our families, for the children who deserve to grow up under open skies instead of shadows. The speaker's voice grew stronger, carrying a rising fire. Well, fight for every story that's not been told yet, for every dream that hasn't had the chance to exist. In military bases, soldiers lifted their heads. In crowded shelters, people stood in ruined streets. Someone raised a hand, then another, then another. No matter who you are, the speaker said, no matter where you come from, no matter what you believe, today you are something more than a citizen, a country. The speaker looked straight into the camera. Today, you are a citizen of Earth. The words spread like a spark through dry grass. The transmission ended without music, without ceremony. The screen went dark, but the silence it left behind was not empty. Across the planet, people looked at one and another differently. Strangers nodded, hands were offered. Old enemies stood side by side, not because they had forgiven the past, but because they understood the future demanded something greater. Above them, the alien fleet still hovered, vast and cold and certain of their victory. Below them, a wounded, frightened, but newly united world took its first breath as something it had never truly been before. One people, one planet, one voice rising from billions of hearts, quietly at first, then stronger, carrying a message into the stars. We are still here.